Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about the Palace Arms today. So here I am, Sean. Well, where do I start with the Palace Arms? This video is about an individual that was working at the Palace Arms that I had a lot of trust and faith in. The first thing he said to me is because we were from the same province that he was going to be a good friend of mine. Turned out to be wrong. Well, the first thing at the Palace, in April, he told me that the owner of the Palace would be in a lot of trouble with Revenue Canada. You better bail out of the Palace Arms, is what this individual said. Now, this individual, in my last video, a walk by the Palace Arms, I show the office that he's working out of, and I also show the room that he's in with the Christmas decorations. So getting back to the story, this individual is still working as of January 17th, 2017 at the Palace Arms, said to me that there would be a lot of heat on the owner and that there'd be a lot of heat coming down on him. Best that you get out of the palace. So wow, I said, wow, Revenue Canada's coming after him. There's a big investigation. He said they've got like 50 people under investigation. I said, wow, this is bad news. So what I did is I took all my stuff and put it into Ossington storage and started preparing my move, in the late March. So, okay, that happened. And then I had to find alternative accommodations in the East End of Toronto, where I'm still currently at. So the individual said to me, he said, do this, get your stuff because things are coming down. So I put all my stuff in storage, moved to my next location. Then I contacted the guy 2 weeks later, and the guy said to me, he said, you better not go near your locker. The police are investigating the locker on Ossington. So what I did when he said that is I gave him the keys to my locker to get a few items out. I said, get my toolbox. It has some valuable tools inside it. Well, it turns out that the next time I went into my locker, things were missing. I said, yeah, stuff went missing out of my locker. So what he said is that there was a guy working, the police were going to raid the locker. That's why I told him to get it out. Don't go by there. Then he tells me a guy working in Ossington storage was breaking open the back panel and stealing stuff out of the storage locker. So I said, oh my, then I just dumped stuff up. Turned out that was all a lie. Okay, then we got in contact with each other again in late May. He told me to go to the Landlord-Tenant Act and try to get some money from this owner. Okay, this was probably second last day of May. So come July, I get all the paperwork in the interim. In July, I go to the Landlord Rental Tribunal. A phone call is placed into me from this individual in July saying that the police are going to be there. I'm impeding their investigation against the owner of the Palace Arms. Do not go there. Whoa, this is dangerous. So what I did is I did not go there because, well, if they're impeding the investigation, and then he said you could be arrested if you show up for the Landlord Rental Tribunal. I got very nervous and did not show up for the Landlord Rental Tribunal. Turns out, I asked him later, I said, was a particular cop there, AK? And he said no. So it turns out that this again was bullshit, because he would have to go on the stand and testify against the owner of the palace, and he wanted to milk out the Palace Arms money that he was getting from the owner for as long as he can. This would screw him up on it. So he told me some BS that I'm going to be arrested if I show up for the Landlord Rental Tribunal. That ended up being false. So here we go again. Another lie by this guy. So then we get into July. The guy says to me in July, he said, we got a bigger thing to do where we can get more money out of the owner. We can take this next case up with the owner and make more money. Okay, I go down and get the papers. Well, as all summer he's shooting the BS, and then he said the cops are following him when he's coming to meet me. This turns out to be true because I think they had him as a suspect in the building. So anyways, this whole thing that he got, another case that he got me into, he basically, this ended up being a lot of bullshit. I heard from the people, Mr. Chow, in September, and then 2 months later in December, he says, we're overbooked on cases, and this case will be referred to another client, worker or whatever. And here we are past the middle of January, no word. So this looks like a case that's going to drag out 3 to 5 years. It's kind of a waste of my time. What, for maybe $5,000? It's not even worth it. So getting back to the gentleman that is working at this establishment right now, here's what's going on. He's working in office 1A. Doesn't look like he's renting rooms. Here's what he's doing. He's selling contraband cigarettes, weed out of the office, renting rooms for the night and pocketing the money. So this is what he's up to right now at the Palace Arms. The owner's turning a blind eye to the guy because the guy has stuff on the owner. The owner was doing some corrupt business practices. This guy knows about it. The owner turned 80 years old in the middle of January, and the owner is kind of like afraid of this guy. So this guy's basically manipulated the owner of the establishment and basically thrown a guy like me under the bus in this whole situation. I'm not too happy about it. The guy has stolen my personal belongings out of my locker. I trusted this guy. And another thing I find kind of ironic is that there were 8 break-in enters at the Palace Arms over a period of time. This guy lived on the first floor of the Palace Arms, yet he doesn't know anything about the 8 break-ins. He's exactly 65 feet away from the office when it was broken into 8 times. Now, the fact that the owner was stupid enough not to have cameras, which makes him an idiot, surely this guy in the 8 B&Es would have known something about it. Like I said, he's 65 feet away from the office, his room. The fact that he never heard anything tells me that there's something up with that. But this guy is a slick criminal. One day, on the 2nd floor I was with him, he was doing maintenance work on a door, and he says to me, I can break into any of these rooms at the Palace Arms. Well, that's really nice to know, buddy. So we're dealing with a guy of the criminal element, and he's made my life a living hell. And the last time that I had contact with this guy was a text message. And I avoid anything. I don't want to receive any phone calls or text messages from this guy. The last time was when I did my video, a walk by the Palace Arms. I think he's seen a little bit what was going on when I said there's a lot of corruption in this office. And then I turned around the corner and showed the camera right at his room with the Christmas decorations around him, the twine. And then about 3 days later, it was on a Monday, on a Thursday, he said, Graham's new manager. He must have knew that there was some heat coming on him from me about this incident, and he basically didn't want any heat coming on him, and he gave me this stupid bogus text message that Graham's the new manager. I don't really give a hoot about that. I don't really give a hoot who's the manager at the Palace. But that's just some more BS he has. The one thing you got to know about this guy working at the Palace who has white hair, and he's been around a long time, is that 70% of what he says is BS, 30% is the truth. So you got to weed through the 30% that is truth and the 70% which is lies. And this is Sean on a overcast January day, and I'm out.